Every morning at exactly 7:10 a.m., I'd hear the same sound, the sharp growl of a high-performance engine cutting through the quiet of the neighborhood. At first, I thought someone was simply passing through, maybe taking a shortcut to the main road. But the longer it went on, the more suspicious it felt. The engine would stop right in front of my house, and that's where the real annoyance began. A bright, cherry-red Porsche 911 would slide in like it owned the curb, stopping just inches from my mailbox and half-blocking the entrance to my driveway. The car didn't belong to anyone I knew. I didn't recognize it, and I certainly didn't appreciate it. My street wasn't exactly a highway, this was a residential neighborhood with driveways, kids, and parking rules that everyone else managed to follow. But whoever owned that Porsche clearly didn't care. Day after day, the same thing happened. The car parked there in the morning, disappeared by noon, and returned without warning whenever it pleased. It wasn't long before it became more than a minor irritation, it became what I woke up dreading. Finally, after a week of this nonsense, I decided to catch the driver in the act. I stood behind my curtain and waited for the familiar engine rumble. Right on schedule, the Porsche rolled up. When the door swung open, my jaw nearly hit the floor. Out stepped Karen, the HOA president, wearing oversized sunglasses, a coffee cup with attitude printed on it, and that trademark smug expression of someone who believes rules apply to everyone but her. She didn't even glance at my house, mailbox, or driveway. She just clicked her keys, tossed her hair, and strutted down the street as if she were on a runway. I marched outside and asked, as politely as humanly possible, why she was parking in front of my house every morning. She barely spared me a glance before replying, "It's a public street. I can park wherever I want. HOA rules don't restrict street parking." Then she added, with a condescending smirk, "Maybe focus on keeping your yard up to standard instead of worrying about my Porsche." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about parking. This was about control. About power. About Karen being Karen. And I knew then that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle, one she had unknowingly started the moment she parked that gleaming Porsche in front of my house. The morning after our confrontation, I had hoped Karen would rethink her behavior. Maybe she'd park in front of her own house, or at least somewhere that didn't inconvenience everyone else. But no, at 7:10 a.m. on the dot, I heard the roar of her Porsche again. She pulled up even closer this time, her bumper practically kissing my mailbox. It felt deliberate, like she wanted me to know she wasn't backing down. By noon, I found a bright yellow slip taped to my door. At first glance, I thought it was a delivery notice, but the bold letters told a different story: HOA courtesy warning. According to the paper, my lawn appeared unkempt, my trash can placement violated community guidelines, and my front porch decor did not meet HOA aesthetic standards. It was laughable, my grass was trimmed, my trash cans were exactly where they'd always been, and the only thing on my porch was a welcome mat. This wasn't a courtesy warning. This was retaliation. I took the notice straight to the HOA website and pulled up the bylaws. If Karen wanted to play this game, I was going to know the rules better than she did. And that's when I found the truth: she was breaking at least for parking rules herself. Overnight street parking. Not allowed. Blocking mail delivery. Strictly prohibited. Parking within 10 feet of a driveway. Also forbidden. Parking in front of a home that's not yours on a recurring basis without permission. Clear violation. Armed with this information, I approached her the next morning as she climbed out of her Porsche. "You do know you're breaking multiple HOA rules, right?" I said, holding the printed bylaws. She gave a laugh so fake it should have been sold in a costume shop. "I am the HOA," she replied dramatically. "If there's a problem, I'll decide how it's handled." Her arrogance was astounding. She flicked her sunglasses up and added, "Besides, everyone knows your house is bringing down the neighborhood value. I'm doing you a favor by parking here." That was the moment things changed. Other neighbors, fed up with her antics, started quietly telling me their own stories: fake warnings, fines pulled out of thin air, and random power trips. Karen had been running the HOA like her personal kingdom, and I had unknowingly stepped into her territory simply by standing up for myself. The battle lines were drawn. She had her Porsche and her clipboard of fake violations. I had logic, proof, and a growing list of allies. The war with Karen had officially begun. By the third week, I had reached my limit. Karen's Porsche had become a permanent fixture in front of my house, her fake warnings were piling up like spam mail, and her attitude was only getting worse. She strutted around the neighborhood like a self-appointed queen, convinced nothing and no one could challenge her authority. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't planning to fight her with anger, I was planning to fight her with strategy. The opportunity came unexpectedly. I decided to start a small renovation on my garage, something I had been putting off for months. To make space for the contractors and the materials, I ordered a large construction dumpster, one of those heavy-duty steel ones you couldn't miss even if you tried. The company called to confirm delivery, and suddenly, everything clicked in my mind like a perfectly aligned puzzle piece. I instructed the company to place the dumpster legally right in front of my house, exactly where Karen always parked her Porsche. There was no rule against it, in fact, the HOA Bylaws allowed temporary construction equipment with prior notice, which I made sure to submit. I added cones, reflective tape, and even a large bright sign that said, "Caution, construction area. Do not block." It wasn't just obvious, it was impossible to ignore. But if Karen excelled at one thing, it was ignoring anything that didn't align with her ego. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, brewed a cup of coffee, and set up my security cameras to ensure they had a clear view. I even sat on my porch, pretending to scroll through my phone, waiting for the inevitable. At precisely 7:10 a.m., the Porsche appeared, like clockwork. Karen slowed down, confused for a moment as she saw the massive dumpster taking up her precious parking spot. Instead of parking somewhere else like any reasonable person would, she huffed, revved her engine, and tried squeezing her car into the tiny gap between the dumpster and the curb. Her judgment was terrible. Her patience was non-existent. Her entitlement was blinding. With a loud metallic crunch, the side of her Porsche scraped against the steel corner of the dumpster. She panicked, jerked the wheel, and slammed her front bumper directly into it. The sound echoed down the street like an alarm bell announcing her downfall. I watched, sipping my coffee, as her luxury car crumpled like aluminum foil. She stumbled out, screaming at the dumpster, the street, and even the air, as if everything in the universe had conspired against her. But the best part? Every second of it was captured on camera. Karen stood frozen for a full 3 seconds, staring at the mangled front end of her beloved Porsche as if her brain refused to accept what her eyes were seeing. Then the rage hit. She spun around toward my house, face red, hair wild, and stormed toward me like a tornado in yoga pants. "This is your fault," she shrieked, pointing aggressively at the construction dumpster as if it had personally offended her family lineage. I calmly sipped the last of my coffee, knowing the cameras had caught every millisecond of her dramatic crash. She called the police, of course. Within minutes, a patrol car rolled up, lights flashing, not because there was an emergency, but because Karen insisted her property had been sabotaged. When the officers arrived, she launched into a full performance, tears, accusations, wild hand gestures, the works. She claimed I had placed the dumpster specifically to destroy her vehicle, and that it was an act of aggression against the HOA. The officers inspected the scene with the exhausted patience of people who had dealt with complaints like hers far too many times. They noted the reflective tape, the bright signs, and the legally submitted construction permit taped to my window. When Karen demanded they ticket me, the officer simply asked, "Did you not see the giant steel dumpster in front of you?" She sputtered, trying to come up with something, anything, that would make this look less like her fault. But the truth was unavoidable. When I showed the officers the security footage, Karen's face went pale. Not only did the video capture her ramming the dumpster, it also recorded her ignoring all warnings, including the giant cones she kicked aside like they were inconveniences to her morning routine. The officers exchanged glances, and one finally said, "This appears to be an at-fault accident." That phrase shattered her. Her insurance company wasn't any more sympathetic. After reviewing the footage, they labeled the crash as driver negligence, meaning Karen was fully responsible for the damages. Repairs for a Porsche aren't cheap, and when she learned her premium would skyrocket, she nearly fainted on the HOA sidewalk. The fallout didn't stop there. Word spread quickly, and the HOA board, tired of dealing with her